NTD, SCP, step 1067. Adjust fuel cell loads between 250 and 290 amps.
CPD copies and work.
SCP copy.
OTC PLT horizontal fit config complete.
Copy that. PLT, perform MPS Helium reconfig.
That'll work.
Pilot Doug Hurley is now performing the main propulsion system Helium reconfiguration, which will open the Helium ISO valves that will permit in-flight purges of the 3 engines, as well as provide an emergency source of pressure for pneumatic shutdown of the engines.
OTC PLT MPS Helium reconfig complete.
Copy that. QC 1050.
Copy.
T-minus.
Go ahead, sir. I can give you step 1074. POISD to be activated.
Entity STM.
Go ahead.
Yeah, our CCC personnel are reporting they've lost SIC 50 and SIC 405. With SIC 50, they lost monitoring of the MLP HVAC pressurizations and chilled water supply temperature in return. Electrical lost monitoring of the O2 analyzers, compartment 2 alpha, and pneumatics has lost monitoring of their pressures for 6K, 3K, 750, and GN2.
Okay, these are just thick failures.
That's affirmed. There's a SIC failure, and COM will have to look into it, so they've lost their monitoring of this equipment.
Okay, and we have redundant measurements for all these?
We don't for the O2 analyzer in compartment 2 alpha. We do for pneumatics. The users can monitor their pressures to verify they're still good, and we don't for the MLP pressurization.
Okay. SP, NTD.
NTD SP is with you, sir.
Right, you copied the report of the lost 6?
I did copy 2 6 down in an MLP affecting O2 analyzers and some of the pneumatic and HVAC capability. And Steve, I understand from we were talking on 245 a little bit as well that downstream users still have their functionality, their visibility. It's a loss of some of the instrumentation that's assuring the visibility to the system only. They have upstream indications of the functionality for pneumatics and HVAC, and nobody's reporting any loss of functionality. So I feel good about maintaining this configuration from a launch countdown perspective, and if we begin to affect functionality, the folks will let us know. And then, of course, the downstream users are going to see it as well. And then for the O2 analyzer in compartment 2A, it's not manned, and we can go manage that post-launch as we need to for getting access.
And I concur with that. Do we want to take Maximo on this?
Sure. I would expect that the guys already will have a Maximo wide to cover them.
Okay, STM NTD?
STM.
All right, we'll take Maximo to cover all this, and I don't see any constraint to continuing launch, so we don't need to constrain anything on countdown.
And that's confirmed. I've talked to all the systems, and they are go to continue.
Okay, thank you.
This is Shuttle Launch Control at T-minus 11 minutes, 7 seconds and counting, and NASA Test Director Steve Payne discussing an issue with a fixed interface controller, 2 of them that have failed, but neither of which is believed to be a concern for us in continuing with the countdown.
Attention on 212, discontinue all non-mandatory LEB traffic for the remainder of the count.
This is Shuttle Launch Control.
Houston flight on 212.
Go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir, I can give you step 1047. The BFS pre-flight uplink load is complete. In addition, I can let you know that 1097 and 1100, the pass and BFS uplinks are not going to be required. And the last item is that I would like to do step 1039 with alternate tail site selection.
Copy that.
We'll put that one in work right now.
Thank you.
This is Shuttle Launch Control. We're approaching our final built-in hold today. Our hold at T-minus 9 minutes will be approximately 45 minutes.
Go ahead, Houston.
Roman, we'd like you to select Maroon for the prime TAL on spec 50. We'll call you at press the ATO to select Zaragoza.
Copy. We'll go ahead on spec 50 now and select Maroon Site 3 and Zaragoza at PTA.
And we are at T-minus 9 minutes and holding.
T-minus 9 minutes and holding. Duration of hold will be 45 minutes, 10 seconds.
Here in firing room 4 at Kennedy Space Center's Launch Control Center. We have no technical issues standing in the way of launch, and weather is green on all counts.
We give you 1080.
We'll continue to watch it, and we'll continue to monitor the situation for weather at the shuttle landing facility.
FPS copy.
But right now, everything remains on course for the launch of Endeavour at 6:03 p.m. Eastern Time. Once Endeavour lifts off, command and control of STS-127 switches to the Mission Control Center in Houston. And at this time, we'll go there for an update from Kylie Clem.
OTC PLT.
PLT, go.
Thanks, Mike. Good afternoon and welcome to Mission Control Houston at T-minus 9 minutes and holding. Here at the Johnson Space Center, the Ascent Flight Control Team has been on console in the Space Shuttle Flight Control Room since 11:30 this morning. The team is led by Flight Director Brian Lunny, who is overseeing his third ascent. Astronaut Alan Poindexter is serving as the Capcom, or spacecraft communicator, and will make calls to Endeavour's crew during the climb to orbit. The team here, along with the team at the Kennedy Space Center, is monitoring systems on the Space Shuttle Endeavour. They are not discussing any technical issues that would affect launch at this time. The teams have again closely watched the weather forecast for today's launch. Here at the Johnson Space Center, that effort is led by Weather Flight Director Richard Jones and Weather Capcom astronaut Eric Bowe. They are looking at the launch site in the event of an emergency return to the shuttle landing facility and at the contingency runways in Spain and France. The weather appears to be cooperating for today's launch. As Capcom Alan Poindexter just mentioned to Shuttle Commander Mark Polansky a moment ago, the primary transoceanic abort landing site is Maroon, with Zaragoza available if necessary. The team has been watching the winds at Zaragoza, but both sites have a favorable weather forecast for the time period that they would be needed. The contingency runway in Istres, France does not have a favorable forecast, so is not available. Down the hallway in the International Space Station Flight Control Room, Flight Director Royce Renfrew is overseeing operations. The 6 international crew members of Expedition 20, Commander Gennady Padalka, and flight engineers Mike Barrett, Koichi Wakata, Roman Romanenko, Bob Thirsk, and Frank DeWinna, are about 30 minutes away from beginning their sleep shift, but Mission Control plans to send up live video of the launch so the crew members can watch. The station crew members have been getting ready for this joint mission, preparing items for return to Earth aboard Endeavour, getting the airlock and equipment ready for the spacewalks, and reviewing procedures. This work has been in addition to their regular support of research on board from scientists around the world and maintaining station systems. At the time of launch, the International Space Station will be about 220 miles above the Central Pacific. Throughout the ascent, Capcom Alan Poindexter will provide Endeavour's crew with the status of the Space Shuttle's capability to reach the contingency landing sites and eventually orbit as Endeavour gains speed and altitude. The first calls between Houston and the crew will be once Endeavour clears the launch tower. That should be about the onboard guidance and navigation control system maneuvering the shuttle to a heads-down position, putting it on a precise course and trajectory towards space. About 30 seconds into the flight, Endeavour's 3 main engines will be throttled down to protect the vehicle as it passes through the area of maximum atmospheric pressure. The engines will operate at about 240,000 pounds of thrust for a few seconds, and then throttled back up to provide over 396,000 pounds of thrust. At 2 minutes and 3 seconds, the solid rocket boosters will burn out and separate from the vehicle, at which point Endeavour will be traveling over 3,600 miles per hour. Endeavour will continue toward orbit, and its target speed is 17,500 miles per hour, at which point the engines will be turned off and the external fuel tank will separate. At main engine cutoff, 8.5 minutes into the flight, Endeavour will be in a 138 by 36 statute mile orbit. About 30 minutes later, the orbit will be adjusted using the orbital maneuvering system engines to a 142 by 98 statute miles orbit, and that's setting up for the on-orbit operations. All continues to go well here in the Space Shuttle Flight Control Room. Flight Director Brian Lenny has completed the poll of the team here with the go for launch, and the team is ready to take over the flight of Endeavour and the STS-127 mission at solid rocket booster ignition. Back to Mike. At T-minus 9 minutes and holding, this is Mission Control Houston.
OTC? OTC copies. TVC? TVC copies. TC? PTC copies. LPS?
LPS copies.
Thank you, Kylie.
Pilot copies.
STM?
This is Shuttle Launch Control. We are in the T-minus 9 minute hold, and about 40 minutes remain in the hold.
SRO? SRO copies.
NASA Test Director Steve Payne is advising the launch team on the fact that we will be launching at our preferred in-plane time of 6:03 and 10 seconds.
10 seconds.
GLS copies, we'll put that in work.
OTC, MPS.
MPS go.
Depletion sensor simulated command remove on final checkouts complete. That's step 1111. And on step 1112, we'll take it not perform.
Copy that. And into the OTC?
Go ahead.
Give you 1111.
Copy. Depletion sensor command remove is complete.
CLHY, CLOX, you copy as well?
LHY copies.
NTD, CGLS 212.
Go ahead, GLS.
Yes, sir. You have a pending resume for 21:54:10 GMT.
And I concur, thank you.
And I can also give you steps 1089 and 1090. Fill in for 1090 is 4:55.
Copy both.
This is Shuttle Launch Control, T-minus 9 minutes and holding. About 38 minutes remain in the hold today, and Shuttle Weather Officer Kathy Winters is working with her team and has updated the chance of weather prohibiting launch to only 20%, so things are moving in the right direction. Officially, there are no launch constraints for weather at this time. When we entered countdown today, we had a 40% chance of weather prohibiting launch, and it's now down to 20. When the countdown resumes, the ground launch sequencer will be in control of all critical operations. This master computer program will issue all of the commands necessary to perform the final critical tasks required to put Endeavour in the final launch configuration. The ground launch sequencer monitors about 1,000 different critical orbiter functions during the final 9 minutes of the count to make certain they do not fall out of limits.
To the STM.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it looks like on that fixed trouble, each system is going to have its own paperwork. So the 1104-060 was for electrical. I have one for HVAC.
Okay, 59 is for HVAC.
59 is for electrical, and 60-1104060 is for HVAC. And I'll have one for pneumatics for you here momentarily.
Copy.
This is Shuttle Launch Control. 35 minutes, 38 seconds remaining in our T-minus 9-minute hold. And during this hold, several polls normally are taken to verify that the teams are ready to proceed with launch. In Houston, Flight Director Brian Lunny will poll his ascent team of flight controllers. Here in the Launch Control Center, NASA Test Director Steve Payne will poll all of the engineers in Firing Room 4, and Mission Management Team Chairman Mike Moses will poll members of the Mission Management Team. And Launch Director for STS-127 Pete Nikolenko will also conduct a poll.
PDC.
We're all hoping that the results of the polls are different than they have been the last several launch opportunities.
They get that.
At this point, everything is looking optimistic.
Okay, copy, thank you.
34 minutes, 50 seconds remaining in the hold at T-minus 9 minutes. This is Shuttle Launch Control.
GOIS entity. GOIS entity.
This is GOIS. Go ahead.
Yes, looking for a status of our cameras.
All cameras are ready to support at this time, and if you're ready, I'll give you the fill-in.
I'm ready. Step 1093.
Yes.
Ready.
Long range north 6, long range south 12, medium range north 6, medium range south 6, medium range west 6, and short range 6.
Copy all. And Launch Director entity.
Launch Director, go ahead.
Our ground camera systems ready to support launch.
Yeah, copy that.
With the launch today, Endeavour will be able to fulfill all of its major mission objectives and complete a 16-day mission as originally planned.
Do you need to do your ascent data crew updates today?
Negative. Step 1113, not required.
Copy.
A launch at 6:03 and 10 seconds p.m. Eastern Time will lead to a docking at 1:55 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday, July 17th. We'll conduct all 5 spacewalks on the mission on flight days 4, 6, 8, 10, and 13. We would undock on flight day 14 at 1:19 p.m. Eastern Time on July 28th and land on July 31st at 10:45 a.m. Central Time. A very complex, robust mission with a mixture of robotic activity and spacewalking astronauts to fulfill the goal of completing Japan's Kibo complex.
CTIS 222. CTIF 222. Am I?
CTIF, you're on 212.
This is Shuttle Launch Control. We have 30 minutes remaining in our hold at T-minus 9 minutes. Very quiet in the Launch Control Center as all the engineers and managers monitor their systems. We're working no major technical issues. Weather's looking more optimistic. Shuttle Weather Officer Kathy Winters is now forecasting a 20% chance that weather will prohibit launch.
Just want to inform you that the range is go for countdown resumption in T0. Range status is go for launch. And your status remains go. That's affirmed. Copy off.
For those keeping statistics, today is the 6th attempt officially to launch STS-127 and Endeavour. The record is held by 2 missions, STS-73 and STS-61C, both of which launched on their 7th attempt. "28 minutes remaining in our hold at T-minus 9 minutes. This is Shuttle Launch Control.
Entity STM.
Go ahead.
Yeah, in reference to our FIC problem, they'd like to do some troubleshooting. KCCS-COM would like to deactivate 650 and reactivate it.
NSPE entity.
SP's with you.
Okay, FIC 50 has the HVAC. Has the HVAC on it. They're wanting to deactivate and reactivate. I guess it's down now, so we don't have it. So I'm assuming cycling it won't have any effect.
I think the actual approach they're going to go take, Steve, is that 650 and 405 seem to share a common COM port. So the thought was to go let the COM folks try and reset their COM port and reestablish communication. Folks downstairs verified, but there's no other fix hanging off of there that could cause a problem, all single system. So the recommendation from the folks downstairs and from Fire Room 2 was to allow them to go try and reset. And I concur with that recommendation. We'll just hear back from whether it was successful or not.
Copy that. I have no concerns. And STM entity?
STM.
They have a go to cycle?
Copy.
And NTD GOS.
Go ahead, OS.
And we copy that, and we'll have our transmission folks make that COM port recycle.
Okay, and advise when you're complete, please.
This is Shuttle Launch Control. A little less than 24 minutes remaining in our planned hold at T-minus 9 minutes for the launch of Space Shuttle Endeavour on STS-127. This is the 127th Space Shuttle flight, Endeavour's 23rd flight, and the 29th shuttle mission to the International Space Station. We're not working any technical issues that would prevent us from launching. We continue to monitor the weather from a launch perspective. We're totally green. And optimism is building within the Launch Control Center for our planned launch at 6:03 and 10 seconds p.m. Eastern Time. This is Shuttle Launch Control.
CMQC 1113 is not performed. QC copies.
This is Shuttle Launch Control. We're at T-minus 9 minutes and holding, and exactly 30 minutes from our planned liftoff time at 6:03 and 10 seconds.
PLT, clear hardware caution and warning memory and verify no unexpected errors.
PLT, Eric.
At this time, Space Shuttle Program Launch Integration Manager and Chairman of the Mission Management Team, Mike Moses, is conducting a poll of the Mission Management Team members.
PLT, no unexpected errors.
Copy, sir.
OTC, CHD.
HUD, go.
Yeah, I can give you step 930, and I have fill-ins when you're ready.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Up number is 80. Run number is 3. RTOMI log number is LCC5-042909-001.
Copy all. QC?
Please copy.
And I can also give you step 1139. Confidence checks are complete. That's 1137, I'm sorry.
Copy that, 1137.
This is Shuttle Launch Control. 18 minutes remaining in our hold at T-minus 9 minutes, and the team is working no technical issues. Weather appears to be clearing.
NTD STM.
Go ahead.
A report back from the CCC. They did the SIC reset, and it did not work, so it still remains down. They're going to stay this way through count.
Copy that. SP, did you copy?
SP copies and concurs.
Thank you.
Sixteen and a half minutes remaining in our hold. Mission Management Team Chairman Mike Moses has conducted a poll of the MMT. We're standing by for a poll from NASA Test Director Steve Payne, polling the various test conductors, including those responsible for the vehicle, spacecraft, the range, the tracking stations, and mission control. This is Shuttle Launch Control at T-minus 9 minutes and holding. 14 minutes, 45 seconds remaining in the hold. Shuttle Weather Officer Kathy Winters reports to STS-127 Launch Director Pete Nikolenko that she's working no issues. We're green on all launch constraints. They're expecting no anvil clouds within 10 nautical miles of Kennedy, and she now lists the percentage of weather affecting launch less than 10. So less than 10% chance that weather will impede launch. And we'll continue to wait for the polls and hear the status on mission control, the Spaceflight Meteorology Group's assessment of the shuttle landing facility. We're looking inside firing room 4 here at the Launch Control Center at Kennedy Space Center, where the launch team is working and preparing Space Shuttle Endeavour for launch today. The team has been hard at work for hours, monitoring all the systems, troubleshooting minor issues here and there. Nothing of major consequence has been standing in the way, though, of today's launch attempt, and it looks like perhaps weather is going to cooperate. This is Shuttle Launch Control, T-minus 9 minutes and holding. 10 minutes remain in the hold. We're working no technical constraints. Shuttle launch weather is totally green. And in Houston, the Spaceflight Meteorology Group has given a go observed condition and go forecast for return to launch site abort weather. So weather is green all the way across the board, and at this point there are no issues standing in the way of a launch of Space Shuttle Endeavour at 6:03 and 10 seconds Eastern Time today.
OTCC PVD. PVD go. Yes, I can give you step 1121, payload bay purge, flow rate set for launch, and step 1118 is not performed. Copy that, QC. QC copies.
This is Shuttle Launch Control, T-minus 9 minutes and holding. Once Endeavour launches this evening, the primary focus will be to complete the construction of Japan's Kibo laboratory attached to the International Space Station. Kibo, which means hope in Japanese, is the country's major contribution to the station. And the exposed facility that Endeavour is taking up is a platform that can hold up to 10 experiment payloads at a time, measures 18.4 feet wide, 16.5 feet high, and a little more than 13 feet long. Kibo is equipped with its own airlock and robotic arm for external experiments, and its experiments and systems are operated from the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency's control center called the Tsukuba Space Center just north of Tokyo. Six minutes, 30 seconds remaining in our hold at T-minus 9 minutes. This is Shuttle Launch Control.
CISL, JRPS in Houston flight. Perform the L-15 minute recorder activation. ISL?
ISL copies.
RPS?
RPS copies.
And flight.
Houston flight copies.
MS-1 OTC, activate V10 recorder.
OTC MS-1, V10 recorder activation is complete.
Copy, sir.
Attention on the net. This is the NTD conducting the launch status check. All stations, verify ready to resume count and go for launch. OTC?
OTCs go.
TBC?
TTC go.
PTC?
PTC is go.
LPS?
LPS is go.
Flight?
Houston flight is go.
MILA?
Milo's go.
STM?
STM is go.
Safety console?
Safety consoles go.
SPE?
SP is go, sir.
LRD?
LRD is go.
SRO?
SRO's go. You have a range clear to launch.
And CDR?
CDS go.
And Launch Director, NTD, the launch team is ready to proceed.
All right, Launch Director copies. I'll conduct my poll. KSC Processing Chief Engineer, verify no constraint to launch.
No constraints.
Copy, thanks, Steve. KSC Shuttle, Safety Mission Assurance.
KSC SMA is go.
Copy that, thanks, Barry. KSC Payload Launch Manager.
Pete, ISS Ground Processing, and our JAXA partners are go.
Copy, thank you, Bill. Range weather.
Weather has no constraints for launch.
Copy, thank you, Kathy. And Ops Manager.
CP, you've done a great job leading the team to this point through all the hurdles that were thrown at us. The MFT isn't tracking any issues. Looks like this is our day. You're go to launch.
Copy, thank you, sir. And Endeavour Launch Director.
Go ahead.
All Roman, the vehicle's ready. Our support teams are definitely ready. And the weather is finally cooperating, so it is now time to fly. Persistence pays off. Good luck and Godspeed.
Pete, thanks to you and everyone that's worked so hard for this moment. Endeavour's patiently waited for this. We're ready to go, and we're going to take all of you with us on a great mission. Thanks a lot.
Copy that. An NTD Launch Director, you have a go to launch Endeavour.
Copy, go for launch, thank you. Attention on the net, the countdown clock will start in 3 minutes.
This is Shuttle Launch Control. 3 minutes remaining in the hold at T-minus 9 minutes, and we have a go for launch. Liftoff is planned for 6:03 and 10 seconds, p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. for Space Shuttle Endeavour to begin its STS-127 mission to the International Space Station.
NTD CSO. Go ahead. Quarter activation complete. Copy.
Two minutes remaining in our hold. T-minus 9 minutes and holding. Coming up on 1 minute remaining in the count. And we are at 10 minutes away from the launch of Space Shuttle Endeavour. Just a few seconds away from resuming the countdown for the launch of Endeavour.
Countdown clock will resume on my mark.
3, 2, 1, and we are at 10 T-minus 9 minutes and counting.
Sequence has been initiated.
And the ground launch sequencer has been initiated. All countdown functions are now automatically controlled by the GLS computer located in the firing room integration console. NASA Test Director Steve Payne is about to call for the transmittal of stored pre-launch commands. T-minus 8 minutes, 20 seconds.
PLT, connect the central buses to fuel cells per your checklist.
PLT can work.
T-minus 8 minutes and counting. Pilot Doug Hurley is now flipping switches in the cockpit to directly connect the 3 fuel cells to the essential power buses.
OTC PLT, essential buses are connected to the fuel cells.
Copy that.
T-minus 7 minutes, 43 seconds. T-minus 7 minutes, 30 seconds and counting. And the orbiter access arm now is being retracted away from Endeavour.
Endeavour, the world will be watching as you complete the Kibo module, making the Japanese a fully functional partner. Ite Roshai. Have a nice trip.
You bet, thank you.
Those are words from orbiter test conductor Doug Palin to Commander Mark Polansky. The orbiter access arm is the walkway used by the crew to gain entry into the shuttle, and it can be returned to position within seconds if necessary. T-minus 6 minutes, 45 seconds and counting. No problem standing in the way of this evening's launch of Space Shuttle Endeavour.
JRPS, start APU display recorders.
APU recorders are running.
PLT, perform APU pre-start.
Pre-start and work.
T-minus 6 minutes, 8 seconds and counting, and the orbiter test conductor has given pilot Doug Hurley the go-ahead to perform the auxiliary power unit pre-start procedure. The APUs provide pressure to the shuttle's 3 hydraulic systems, which move the main engine nozzles and aero surfaces during flight.
OTC PLT, 3 gray talkbacks.
Copy that, sir.
And that's a good report. Doug Hurley reports the pre-start of the APUs is complete. APU activation will come momentarily. T-minus 5 minutes, 30 seconds. Everything is go. T-minus 5 minutes and counting.
Orbiter APU start.
PLT, perform APU pre-start.
APU start work.
Pilot Doug Hurley is performing a start of the auxiliary power units.
Here, reconfig is complete.
And Commander Mark Polansky has reconfigured heaters. The launch team has terminated liquid oxygen replenish to the external tank and is now initiating LOX drainback.
OTC PLT, 3 good APUs.
Copy that, sir.
All 3 auxiliary power units working well. T-minus 4 minutes.
DLS is go for purge sequence 4.
A final helium purge of the 3 main engines is underway in preparation for engine start. And a final test of the flight control surfaces is now being conducted. It's a pre-programmed pattern of movements designed to verify the readiness for launch of the flight control surfaces, the elevons, speed brakes, and rudder. T-minus 3 minutes, 26 seconds and counting. Final aero surface checks are complete, and Endeavour's 3 main engines will be gimbaled through a pre-programmed series of maneuvers as a final test before launch. T-minus 3 minutes and counting. Final pressurization of the external tank's liquid oxygen tank is underway.
Go for ET LO2 pressurization.
And we're completing the purge of the shuttle main engines.
PLT, clear caution and warning memory. Verify no unexpected errors.
And work.
The gaseous oxygen vent hood, or beanie cap, is slowly being retracted away from the top of the external tank. External fuel cell loading is terminated, and Endeavour's fuel cells are using their onboard reactants.
OTC PLT, no unexpected errors.
Copy that. Endeavour, close and lock your visors and initiate O2 flow.
Endeavour copied.
T-minus 2 minutes and counting. Liquid hydrogen replenish of the external tank is now being terminated. T-minus 1 minute, 40 seconds and counting. All systems are go. About 90 seconds from the launch of Shuttle Endeavour.
30 seconds.
T-minus 1 minute, 10 seconds. T-minus 1 minute and counting. The ground launch sequencer will verify that the 3 main engines are ready to start. The booster joint heaters are being deactivated at this time. T-minus 50 seconds. We're transferring to orbital internal power. Endeavour is now running off of its 3 onboard fuel cells. Coming up on a go for auto sequence start at T-minus 31 seconds.
TLS is go for auto sequence start.
T-minus 27 seconds and counting. Endeavour's onboard computers have primary control of all the vehicle's critical functions. T-minus 18 seconds.
15.
The sound suppression water system has been activated, protecting Endeavour and the launch pad from acoustical energy. We're go for main engine start. We have main engine start. 4, 3, 2, 1. Booster ignition and liftoff of Endeavour, completing Kibo and fulfilling Japan's hope for an out-of-this-world space laboratory.
Houston, Endeavour, roll program.
Roger, roll Endeavour.
This is Mission Control Houston. Endeavour's roll maneuver is being completed. It's now going into a heads-down position on track for its flight to the International Space Station. Flying at 400 miles per hour, 1 mile in altitude and 7 miles downrange already from the Kennedy Space Center. Endeavour's engines were throttling down as the orbiter passes through the area of maximum pressure on the vehicle, now 50 seconds into the flight.
Endeavour, go at throttle up.
Go at throttle up.
The 3 engines on board are throttling back up. Endeavour flying at 1,100 miles per hour, 10 miles in altitude, and 10 miles downrange. At liftoff, the fully fueled shuttle, boosters, and external tank weighed 4.5 million pounds. The total thrust at launch was 6,425,000 pounds. 1 minute 33 seconds into the flight, Endeavour flying at 1,900 miles per hour, 17 miles in altitude, and 16 miles downrange. All systems continue to function well. Endeavour has 3 good main engines, 3 good power generating fuel cells, and 3 good auxiliary power units for the hydraulic system. We'll be standing by for burnout and separation of the solid rocket boosters. Combined, the twin boosters provide 5.3 million pounds of thrust to propel the orbiter towards space. Booster officer confirms the SRBs, or solid rocket boosters, have separated. 2 minutes and 20 seconds into the flight. Endeavour flying at 3,100 miles per hour, 37 miles in altitude, and 51 miles downrange.
Endeavour, 2-engine Maroon.
2-engine Maroon.
Roman, on L1, we'd like high-load duct heater to Alpha Slant Bravo.
Complete.
Copy.
Commander Mark Polansky adjusting a heater on the environmental control and life support system. Endeavour can reach Maroon in the event of a single engine failure. However, all 3 main engines are still operating well. Now 3 minutes, 20 seconds into the flight. Endeavour is flying at 4,000 miles per hour. Booster officer confirms that all 3 engines are performing well. Endeavour at an altitude of 56 statute miles and 120 miles downrange from the Kennedy Space Center.
Endeavour, negative return.
Negative return.
Roman, the extra duct heaters were because we saw a little cooling in the ducts.
Copy.
Now 4 minutes and 18 seconds into the flight, Endeavour is now flying too high and too fast to return to the Kennedy Space Center and the Space Shuttle landing facility in the event of an engine failure. All 3 Space Shuttle main engines continue to function well. The Environmental Systems Officer also confirmed that the flash evaporator system has been activated to provide cooling before the payload bay doors are open in orbit.
Endeavour, press to ATO. Select Zaragoza.
Press to ATO, select Zaragoza.
Now 5 minutes and 22 seconds into the flight, Endeavour could now reach a lower than planned orbit, but a safe orbit on 2 engines should one fail. All 3 engines are still operating well.
Endeavour, single engine ops 3.
Single engine ops 3.
Endeavour could conduct a transatlantic abort landing on 1 engine should 2 fail at this point, all 3 continuing to perform well. Endeavour is flying at 8,300 miles per hour, 67 miles in altitude, 350 miles downrange. Endeavour's engines have been commanded to swivel to put the orbiter in the proper heads-up position. That for communications with the tracking and data relay satellites.
Endeavour, press to MECO.
Press to MECO.
And single engine Zaragoza 104.
Single engine Zaragoza 104.
6 minutes, 30 seconds into the flight. That call about press to MECO.
Nominal shutdown plan. Go for the plus X, go for the pitch.
Copy, nominal shutdown, go plus X, go pitch.
Endeavour can reach the planned orbit on 2 engines, however all 3 continuing to perform well. And the shutdown plan of those engines is nominal, as Capcom Alan Poindexter indicated to Commander Mark Polansky.
Endeavour, single engine press 104.
Single engine press 104.
7 minutes and 12 seconds into the flight, Endeavour can reach its planned orbit on 1 engine should 2 fail, and all 3 are continuing to perform well. Endeavour is flying at 12,700 miles per hour, 65 miles in altitude, and 613 miles downrange from the Kennedy Space Center. Seven minutes, 35 seconds into the flight, and the engines are throttling down to maintain structural limits on the orbiter as it passes or approaches loads near 3 times gravity. 8 minutes, 31 seconds into the flight, booster officer confirms the main engine cutoff. And external tank separation is confirmed. Endeavour and its STS-127 crew in orbit. Continuing on the mission to the International Space Station.
Endeavour, nominal MECO, ohms 1, not required.
Endeavour copies.
The main engine cutoff was performed as expected. There is no adjustment of the orbit expected for the first optional use of the orbital maneuvering system engines. The crew on board Endeavour is setting up for the handheld photography of the external tank. Now 10 minutes and 34 seconds into the flight. The Space Shuttle Endeavour continuing on its path to the International Space Station. That link up scheduled for Friday. Crew on board includes Commander Mark Polansky, pilot Doug Hurley, Mission Specialist 1 Chris Cassidy, who served as the flight engineer on the climb to orbit, Mission Specialist Julie Payette served as the flight engineer. Mission Specialist Tom Marshburn, Dave Wolf, and Tim Kopra were on the middeck. Endeavour's mission specialist Tim Kopra is on his way to the space station, which will be his home in space, for a expedition mission at the complex. He'll be replacing flight engineer Koichi Wakata aboard this station, who has spent 122 days in space, 120 of them on board the International Space Station. He launched to the complex aboard Discovery on March 15th. The team here in the Space Shuttle Flight Control Room is monitoring systems on board Endeavour and getting ready to set up for the operations in space. The next maneuver of Endeavour will be with the orbital maneuvering system engines in about 23 minutes and 45 seconds, using that as the OMS 2 burn to more circularize the orbit. This is Mission Control Houston, standing by here on NASA television for replays of the launch of the Space Shuttle Endeavour and expecting the post-launch news conference around the top of the hour at 6 p.m. Central Time.
Endeavour Houston for Chunky. Your go for APU hide shutdown.
Copy, go for APU hide shutdown. Houston Endeavour, here comes Ops 105 if you're ready.
Endeavor Houston, we copy, and we see you in 105. And Roman, we'll take auto on the DAP when you're ready.
Okay, we're just letting the guys finish a couple of pictures, and as soon as they're done, we'll do that.
Okay, great. And preliminary OMS 2 TIG is 38:30, and you can type that in when you're ready for it.
Okay, we'll type that in now, 3830.
Endeavor Houston, you're go to load.
Copy, go to load.
Houston, Endeavor from the mid-deck. Con check.
Endeavor Houston, on the mid-deck, we've got you loud and clear. Tim?
Same here.
Endeavour Houston for Chunky. MPS power down on time.
Okay, we copy that.
Endeavour Houston for Roman, your go to maneuver when you get there. We expect it to be about a 4.5-minute maneuver.
Okay, we'll go ahead and maneuver now. Houston, Endeavour, comm check from the flight deck handheld mic.
Loud and clear on the handheld mic.
You too as well, Dex. Good to talk to you.
Welcome to space, Chris.
Thanks a lot. Houston, Endeavor, here comes ET umbilical door closure.
Thanks, Chunky. We're watching. Endeavor Houston, good config for the burn.
Good config for the burn. Thanks, Dex.
Test 1, 2, test.
Houston Endeavor, just a heads up, we're going to turn off a couple of MDUs that we don't need.
Copy, Roman. Thanks for the heads up. Roman will take auto on the DAP and an item 27, please.
You got it.
Endeavor Houston, good burn, no trim required.
We copy, thanks.
Roman will take the gimbal trim as written and no deltas on page 5-2.
We copy. Here come the gimbal trims and no deltas. Houston Endeavor, here comes Ops 106.
Thanks, Roman. We're watching.
Houston Endeavor, we're picking up in post-insertion page 1-3, and when we get to block 1, do you have any deltas?
Roman, you're tagged up right with us. In block 1, we're going to single G2.